The Office holds a special place in my heart. It's one of the first sitcoms that I watched and was the first one that consistently made me laugh. The amount of quotable lines and visual gags that the show is packed with is ridiculous and makes for a better viewing experience every time I rewatch it.
Snip, snap, snip, snap, snip, snap.
And because of that, it's definitely the show that I've rewatched the most times. It's interesting to see how I've interpreted it differently as I've grown older and evolved as a person, especially the change in how I interpret the characters. Characters that I initially viewed as lame or annoying, I warmed up to on subsequent viewings. The most obvious case of this would be Dwight Schrute. I initially saw him as kind of a loser, but later saw him as a caring, ambitious person who just doesn't have good people skills, but still does dumb things. Another one of these characters would be Karen Filippelli. For some reason, among the Office fandom, she's hated on, but I just don't see why. I mean, her two biggest objectives are to advance her career and have a strong relationship. It's hard to hate someone like that. And now when I rewatch the show, I just feel bad for her because she got played so hard by Jim. I mean, she moved her entire life to Scranton with the intention of settling down with Jim, and literally right after she does this huge act of commitment, he dumps her.
Sensational.
That's messed up. And that brings me to the character of Jim Halpert. Much like how I've come to support characters I once didn't like, there are also characters who I originally viewed as the heroes of the show, the cool voices of reason that were superior to their wacky counterparts. But now I see these characters as lame, and there's no bigger example of this than Jim Halpert. My biggest fear in life is turning into Jim Halpert. It may seem like an odd fear, but nothing scares me more than this personification of averageness. Jim Halpert is an individual who is quite capable of doing exceptional things, but voluntarily decides to live a mediocre life. For much of his young adult life, he barely puts an effort as a salesman at a failing regional paper company, but acts like he's perfectly fine not having aspirations and coasting through a forgettable existence. But the worst part about his character to me is that he acts like he's superior to his coworkers, but he's not. He's no different from Kevin or Stanley or Creed.
I didn't realize that everybody here dresses up every year.
Me neither.
He simply clocks in, does the bare minimum for 8 hours, clocks out, and does absolutely nothing else with his life. But he'll gladly drop wisecracks about other people, namely Dwight, for trying to improve their life and move up.
And yes, they're all probably very mad, and that'll make me feel better about not having dreams.
He's literally like that one kid in athletics who's walking while everyone else is running drills because he thinks he's above everyone else and couldn't be bothered to put in work. Let's be honest, Jim is only the cool character in the show because he's surrounded by weirdos. Put Jim in any other office and he's just another guy. In fact, he'd be lower than everyone else. And we truly witness how lame Jim really is with the introduction of Charles Minor.
I am aware of the effect I have on women.
Seeing Jim interacting with a straight man boss like Charles is jarring, and he falls flat on his face. Now, I will say, Charles was unfairly picking on Jim, but Jim did an absolutely horrible job leaving a good impression. And once he saw that being a slacker wasn't gonna cut it with Charles, he went full butt kisser. Jim, who was supposed to be the coolest guy in the office, was exposed as being kinda pitiful. The funniest thing is, he later mocks Charles for kissing David Wallace's butt, despite doing the exact same thing to Charles. I mean, maybe not to the extent of Dwight, but he was still attempting to suck up. I mean, what is he trying to prove? He thinks Charles is corny for complimenting David, but he pretended to like soccer just to get into Charles's good graces? Like what? It's also confusing what Jim's view of Dunder Mifflin even is. He clearly doesn't care about the company as he doesn't want to make a career out of it and puts no effort into his job, but is suddenly appalled by Josh Porter when he uses his recent promotion to leverage a senior management position at Staples and leaves Dunder Mifflin.
Say what you will about Michael Scott, but he would never do that.
Okay, I can see both sides of the issue. Dunder Mifflin poured time and money to restructure the company to keep Josh around, and by him leaving, they wasted a lot of resources and had to frantically pick up the pieces of him leaving. On the other hand, Josh, being a shrewd businessman, saw an opportunity to leave a failing paper company for a better position at an industry leader. The world of business is cutthroat, and I can't really blame Josh for making this move. And Jim, of all people, shouldn't be so offended by this. Josh did what was best for him. You gotta look out for yourself. I hate this idea that someone has to be ride or die with the organization they work for. I see this especially in sports. When a player looks for a better opportunity on another team, they are seen as a traitor and have no honor. But as soon as they don't have value to a team, they are discarded because business is business, right? And I don't know why Jim is applauding Michael Scott for being loyal to a company that truly doesn't care about him at all. I mean, they were literally planning on firing him to keep Josh around.
Also, if you're a guy, there's no way you should like Jim Halpert. He's literally like one of those cry on your shoulder type guys that creeps around your girl and waits for her to get vulnerable for his time to strike. His whole dynamic with Pam in the first seasons where he's trying to slowly break her down to leave Roy, to me, that's just icky.
What the hell is this? What, are you trying to cop a feel or something,
No,
Halpert?
dude, no. Dude,
Hey,
no, dude,
hey,
I was
hey.
just, listen, whoa.
Come on.
God, I don't even know how to explain this.
It may sound harsh, but Jim is my worst nightmare. And the reason he's so terrifying to me is because he's real. I've met many people like him, once ambitious kids with their aspirations beaten out of them by life. And then they proceed to settle for a life of averageness. And I know that plenty of people will try to defend him, that being Jim is not so bad, that not fulfilling your potential is fine, but really what you're doing is coping with the fact that you never took a shot at being something more. I will say that towards the end of the show, Jim does start to apply himself to something when he helps found a sports marketing company. Unfortunately, this was in the garbage season, so it's really hard to care about it. But I will give credit to him. He starts to take risks, his ambition starts to show, and he began to realize that a life of being a regional paper company salesman is not the future that he wants. Weirdly enough, he took risks at a time of life when most people are risk averse, when you have a wife and kids. But hey, it seemed to work out in the end. But again, it's really hard to care about this arc because I honestly have a hard time staying awake during seasons 8 and 9. Jim can best be summed up by his preferred choice of lunch, a ham and cheese sandwich. Passable, but forgettable. I can't wait to read the comments. I already know y'all are about to have a field day, so go ham. I can't wait to have a discussion with you guys. Stay blessed and have a great day.